now. Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Noel Marshall, and welcome to the new vlogcast from the Peace Pentagon Hub in Independence, Virginia. The Peace Pentagon Hub is a conference and training center for progressive programs and sacred activism. It is located on the beautiful Oracle Institute campus in Independence, Virginia. And what we do is look for solutions that are working in the world in a lot of different sectors, whether that be education, governance. But today we are delighted that we have Clare DuBois representing the environment sector. And Clare is the founder of TreeSisters.org, of which my husband and I are proudly members. So for a monthly donation, you too can claim to be a Tree Sister. But let me just give, before I turn this over to Clare, let me just give a little bit of introduction about the Tree Sisters. It's a global network of women who donate monthly to fund the restoration of our tropical forests as a collective expression of planetary care. As a feminine leadership and tropical reforestation organization, we exist to call forth the brilliance and generosity of women everywhere and channel it towards the trees. Our goal is to make it as normal for everyone to give back to nature as it currently is to take nature for granted. Guilty as charged, but since I met Tree Sisters, of course, I've changed my ways. So I'd like to welcome Clare DuBois, as I said, the founder. Tree Sisters is a UK-based charity, but they do work all around the world. But Clare, I know your story. It's just fascinating. It's inspiring. Tell us a little bit about how Tree Sisters came about. And then, because I know you're such an impassioned, articulate communicator for the trees and for our planet, I'm just going to say, why don't you take the next 15-20 minutes, talk about the three greatest things that are on your heart, well, relative to Tree Sisters, of course. So, Clare, welcome, and thank you for joining us.
Wow, what a privilege, and what a risk to just give me freewheeling for 15 minutes. Who knows what's gonna
or 20.
Well, do feel free to like wave at me if you've got a question.
Oh, indeed. I've been known to do that.
Well, what I would say about Tree Sisters is it had a very unusual birthing. Mm-hmm. It's a very unusual creature, and it's, I think, will always be a very unusual creature because it is an experiment. It's entirely a social experiment. And so how that came about was I imagine, like many people out there, trying to figure out how to respond appropriately to climate change. So I was in my own place of, we can all live our lives. We can all do what we're good at. We can all, attempt to make a living. We can bring our gifts forward. And yet I feel as if the times that we live in are an invitation to discover so much more about ourselves, who and what we actually think we are, feels like a minute part of what has to come forth. And, we seem to have created a state of acute tension between humanity and the planet is struggling profoundly as a result. And that tension to me it's like a dynamic tension that will either break, like we'll either have an evolutionary crash or we'll have an evolutionary bounce. We'll morph into an expression of ourselves that is beautiful and reverent and in humility and in relationship with nature. And so I was haranguing around in myself for about 3 years, knowing that what I was doing I could do, I was good at it, but I was thoroughly dissatisfied, and it made no sense in relationship to the bigger issues that we're facing. So I started working for an agroforestry initiative in southern India because I knew I had to do something for the trees, because trees to me are one of the most spectacular solutions to climate change, because trees are carbon made visible. So I was out there and I was studying this initiative that was a social mobilization initiative in a caste culture. And I figured if they could do it, if they could bring their whole society together across their social divides to step up on behalf of the environment, then it had to be possible in the West. And I was looking for someone in the West to pick it up and run with this thing. And the very day that I had distilled the social strategy that was working in India and I brought it over, the very day I was about to hand it over to somebody, I got stopped by a tree and crashed my car on ice. And the tree stopped me going off an edge, which I've always thought was a very interesting metaphor for reforestation, preventing humanity going over an edge. And I was given TreeSisters. The voice started talking to me in the car. It told me that humanity was running out of time, that we had 10 years to reforest the tropics. And essentially, our greatest fear was fear of failure, and that we could get over that by calling everything we did an experiment, because you couldn't fail an experiment. You could only learn. And essentially, we had to mobilize the women, because the women were the missing piece. Feminine leadership was missing. Feminine consciousness was missing. And very clearly I was told women had to remember who and what they really are. Feminine consciousness had to be reinstated or it was over. And the voice made a lot of really strong arguments for how the history of what's been done to women and the history of what's been done to nature is one and the same. And that essentially the rise of patriarchy has been a distorted version of the masculine that is taking its power by suppressing the feminine. And that in a sense is the suppression of life, which is what we're seeing. And life will only be suppressed for so long, and I think women will only be suppressed for so long. So TreeSisters is this really unique combination of feminine empowerment and tropical reforestation, which, unless you really can grasp the fact that womankind has the capacity to call forth or channel through a different quality of intelligence, because we're wired differently, because our bodies are cyclical, they run with the moon, they run with the tides, because we're wired for intuition and instinct and deep listening in a way that is unique. The masculine and the feminine are not supposed to be the same. They're complementary. They have different gifts, and our gifts have been belittled and suppressed, and we've been tortured and hammered and murdered for it, and over a very long time, which has been a very strong message to women, to be acceptable. This is what you are. This is what you're supposed to be. This is how you're supposed to contribute. And what I was basically shown was womankind just has to do that. Sorry, no, done that for long enough. That's not what we are. Actually, we need to rediscover, reclaim, re-embody the true feminine, so that the masculine has got an opportunity to step into appropriate relationship that is not patriarchal, that is not power over, that is actually respectful and unified, and a dance whereby the masculine within each of us understands that the doing part of us needs to be in respectful relationship with the receptive side, because the receptive side helps us know how things are. And unless we're willing to actually feel how things are, we're not going to act appropriately. So right. The act of the feminine has allowed for climate change. I'd almost go to say that the absence of the feminine is the root of climate change.
Interesting.
Because if you could feel your indivisibility from nature, if you recognized yourself as part of rather than superior to, could you trash your own survival system, your own life support machine? No, you couldn't.
No.
But there's a complete absence of reverence.
Right. And, I wanted to bring in here, Claire, some work by Paul Hawken, the Project Drawdown. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's the 100 solutions that could that could actually reverse climate change. And if you took women empowerment, the education of women, and you took reforestation, that is 75% of the solution, just those two out of the 100. And I just find that, so synchronous with what you're saying, so aligned with what you're saying and bringing, and it's beautiful. But continue.
Well, luckily, Paul actually said that he thinks TreeSisters is one of the most important solutions for climate change. Like, he's right behind us for that very reason.
Mm-hmm.
And
right.
And actually, the empowerment of women inside of Project Drawdown is not looking at Western women. It's looking at developing women and birth control and women in positions of responsibility. I mean, our reforestation projects, it's the same there, where there are women in positions of management. The work goes really well classically, because the feminine way is to ensure that everybody benefits. Because we naturally tend the whole system. That's what we're wired for. We're wired for family, and we're wired for the health of the family and the harmony of the family. But those capacities extend way beyond the family because the truth is, we're not in these tiny little cells that we've put ourselves into in our homes in isolation. We are actually as indivisible from nature as the clouds and the deer and the shoals of fish that we're losing. Only we're the only ones that have decided to separate ourselves off with our minds. So our work is essentially really unusual in as much as we're not just telling people, will you give money for trees? We are asking people to give money for trees, but we're saying that is one part of 5 core aspects. And those core aspects are, we have to be willing to open our mind to perceive that humanity is so much more than we've been taught. Because whilst you stay in the box of our current conditioning, you are going to see that taking from nature is our birthright and giving back to nature belongs to somebody else, because we've been taught that it is our divine right to basically take whatever we want and not think about the consequences. That's what's been normalized. So if you can open your mind to the brilliance and the magnificence of the limitless cosmos and open to the possibility that you're part of that, then you start to have access to a completely different quality of intelligence. That's the first part. Second part, we call embrace, which is how we choose to use our hearts, how we choose to love, how we choose to embrace, how we choose to not judge, how we choose to call forth the highest expression of ourselves and others. Because we need to shift the frequency of how we relate, because humanity again has gone, oh, I can go and use those people over there, or I can go and bomb those people over there because I want what they have. But if the human heart was actually functioning in a state of reverence, then it's going to say, I need to take care of those people over there because they're actually my family. And I need to help them keep their resources because those are everybody's resources and they belong there, rather than I'm just going to go and take it and I'm going to figure out a way of making that all right and lying to everybody. So embrace is crucial. And then the third part is embody, which is helping people to dissolve the barriers that create this false sense of separation from nature, so that we can feel our indivisibility. And in that state of indivisibility, start then acting from a place of caretaking nature as we would caretake ourselves. So those first 3 things are what I call the feminine principle: the open receptive mind, the open receptive heart, and the open receptive body. That plugs us into the miracle of the universe, the miracle of each other, and the miracle of nature. Out of that, then, that sense of connection and everything that we receive will move us into action that is appropriate for a miraculous universe, an incredible human species, and a breathtaking natural world. And we will start living in right relationship to it. When we figured out, that's where the trees belong in TreeSisters. That's like one element of 5. So one thing that we would all see is, my goodness, I read yesterday we're cutting down 14 million trees a day. 14 million trees a day, 15 billion trees a year going. And we're replanting at half that rate. Nothing, when you plant a sapling, it can't even compete with the immensity of carbon loss, that is no longer being sequestered of a mature tree. So we need to be reforesting at multiple times the rate that we're deforesting. But a lot of that reforestation is not even ecosystem restoration. It's monoculture. It's trees as crops. It's trees as slaves. Anyway, so if we cared enough about our species, if we cared about each other, and if we cared about our planet, we would be sinking every spare penny that we've got into tropical reforestation, or reforestation full stop, to suck the carbon out of the atmosphere and give future generations even a hope. Right now, there's no hope. So, and then the fifth place is, once we've figured out how to live, then there's what's ours to do. Because there are ways that we all need to start showing up. And we all need to start really thinking about our consumption and understand that whatever we buy, we are agreeing to. So we need to know what we're buying and where it's coming from and how the people are being treated and what's happening to the land. And we need to curb our consumption colossally, and we need to curb many different things that are pumping carbon into the atmosphere. And simultaneously, we need to be sucking that carbon out of the atmosphere. Once we've got like the base level of how to live down, there is this longing of the human heart to give our gifts, to come into relationship with who and what we really are. You know, and I truly believe that if we live our truth, if we can find that thing that brings us most alive, there will be a way of giving that to be part of the solution, rather than it just being, yeah, I'm great with money, I'm going to start another business that rapes the planet. You know, yeah, I'm great with money, how can I take that gift and contribute it to those that are saving the planet, or how can I do something that actually will restore the planet or be regenerative? So I think when we give our gifts, we come close to our heart. And when we come close to our heart, we get closer to our soul. And when we get closer to our soul, then we know more what we're here to do. And then we can be a luminous permission walker for others to do the same. Because, you know, if ever there's been a time that life is saying, here's your chance, you get to discover what you're made of or you die. Like, that's where we're standing. You know, the wise elders of our planet are saying we've got 7 to 9 years left. It's like, okay, are we going to keep carrying on banging the same old drum? Or are we going to create a completely different rhythm, way of being, piece of music, and dance ourselves into a collective evolutionary bounce? So that, in a nutshell, is what I'm most passionate about right now. Wasn't much of a nutshell, was it?
I love the nutshell. I'd also want to say that, again, speaking of your friend, our friend, Paul Hawkins, and all the great work that he's doing, you know, I watched one of his videos recently. He says, is climate change happening to us, or is it happening for us? And when I first heard that, I was going like, well, that actually agrees with everything I say about life, that everything is for us, but we have to take action. You know, it's just like, it's there for us to examine. It's there for us to act on. I am, you know, so pleased to be a part of this organization, as well as the Peace Pentagon, because your sacred activism and what you're bringing to the planet. And tell us in just a little bit of time that we have left, about how activated. I know that you're activating the women around the world, particularly in the tropical areas. I think that's because the regeneration rate is so much faster in the tropics. And also, you could close by letting us know how others can have this little sign here on the on their bill, have a little billboard like this to share how more can find out about TreeSisters.org.
Oh,
back to you, Claire.
So activation inside of TreeSisters is going to look very different for each single person. You know, there is a baseline, which is we are trying to make it normal for everybody to give back, because right now we've got under 4,000 women who are actually contributing over 2 million trees a year. You can contribute a lot with a very small amount. So if you were to give $25 a month, you're planting over 800 trees a year. You know, but how many people could give 50, 100, 200, 1,000 without even thinking about it? You know, we need to start thinking about what's the most I can give back, not what's the least. And there's a beauty in that, because if you actually feel for everything we've taken from nature, everything, including our own bodies, and what are you going to say? You know, so I'm willing to give a $5 or 10 or whatever it is. Actually, you know, what is the appropriate amount? What's an amount that you could give that connects you to your heart and actually is high enough of an amount to have your attention follow it to the trees? Okay, I want to know what they're doing. I want to know that they're doing it well. I want updates. I want to be more involved. I want to be able to give my attention to that thing. That's what we need. So, and that's a privilege. I think of it as a privilege to be able to give back. And when you give back through TreeSisters, you are getting people out of indentured slavery in Madagascar. You're helping to grow mangroves, which are restoring fish stocks and helping with tidal swells. You're helping to grow dry deciduous that are protecting 6 endangered species of lemurs, also in Madagascar. You're growing forest corridors and protecting endangered pumas and jaguars and ocelots and monkeys and trees that are on the endangered list in Brazil. You're protecting the last 250 cross river gorillas, the most endangered gorillas on the planet in Cameroon, where we're just starting to plant. You're growing back jungles and community villages in Nepal. You're growing cloud forest in northern India. You're growing agroforestry trees and helping people basically stop committing suicide in southern India and Tamil Nadu. And you're reforesting the south and north slopes of Mount Kenya to help Mount Kenya actually produce the rivers that the populations downstream need to grow their own food. They're stunning projects. And when you give, you're giving to all of those people and all of those lands and all of those species, as well as sucking carbon out of the atmosphere. And you can do that by simply going to TreeSisters.org and pressing join, or going to TreeSisters.org and pressing donate, or going to billiontrees.me. That's billiontrees.me, because we've just started our journey from 1 million trees a year to 1 billion trees a year. And we'll get there when there's 20,000 of us. Now, in reality, there should be the whole planet giving. And if the whole planet was giving, and when we do normalize giving back, so that it's as normal to give back as it currently is to take for granted, we will have enough money to reforest the planet in a heartbeat, to do sustainable agriculture, to clean up our oceans, to repopulate the sea. We could do it. We just need to choose. And that's that mind shift from, no, I want everything that I earn to go towards taking so that I can feel safe in my limited little world, to, I need what I'm earning to go back so that I can create safety ongoingly for all of us, so that I can be part of the solution. So I would request that everybody here really thinks about it. You know, are you ready? Are you willing to make that evolutionary leap and start shifting from what I call consumer consciousness to restorer consciousness? Because we've got very little time left. And in that time, we get to astonish ourselves, or we get to horrify ourselves, quite honestly. You know, and think about everything that our ancestors have gone through. Are we prepared to say to them, sorry, I know it was a great effort, but we're going out on shopping. You know, we're gonna shop ourselves into a grave, because essentially I want a full bank account, even though that's not going to be able to provide for my kids, because there's not going to be any food, because the weather can't manage it any longer. It's not enough. And we have to actually open to reality to start making significant choices, and let those choices call us from the core of ourselves. And the core of us is life wanting to survive, and life wanting to thrive, and life wanting to be in beauty and abundance. And we can create that. We can utterly create that. We just have to choose. So my call is to make a powerful choice.
It's a powerful call. And I've listened to you many times, Clare DuBois, and each time I learn more, and each time you help me really go deeper in my heart and ponder more about what I can give. And to be thankful for all that I have received. So I just want to thank you for taking this time. This is a very powerful message. We will be sharing this at the peacepentagon.net. And I urge you all that are listening to this, regardless of whatever gender you claim, that contributing through this organization, TreeSisters.org, would be a real gift. So I just want to close, and let me see if there's anything here. I'm so wound up, Claire. I'm thinking I'm supposed to say something here. Okay, about the Peace Pentagon. You can learn more about the Peace Pentagon at peacepentagon.net, and you'll find important actions and critical news. And I think what could be more critical than the news? It's not news, but it's a call to action. A beautiful call to action from you, Claire. So there's also opportunities at the Oracle Institute. The Peace Pentagon Net is also an eco-spiritual community on 22 acres located in southwestern Virginia on one of the oldest rivers on the planet, the New River. And you're welcome to visit there. There is a beautiful bed and breakfast. There's a campground. Labyrinth, Medicine Circle, and we are going to be this August having a very special visit from the Koji coming from Colombia, I believe. And they have a special message. They're coming off the mountain they're going to be in conversation, I know, with you, Claire, and bringing more message about the urgency of where we are on this planet. So without any further ado, I'm sure we're over our time, but I could go another couple hours just listening to you, but we got to get this message out. Oh, yes.
Just because I want to say, we've been shamed away from loving our planet. We've been told that it's hippie-ish. We've been told that it's less than. And actually the appropriate way to be is dominant and technology-based. I'm not knocking technology, but technology at the expense of nature is not it either.
Right.
But what we've been shamed away from, that love of our planet is our birthright, and it's our homecoming, and it makes sense of ourselves. And what it provides is a level of belonging so deep, you cannot feel insecure again. When you let yourself feel your right relationship to this world as mother that you are woven into, you make sense to yourself, and that gaping hole that is our spiritual disconnect from everything that we're supposed to be in this world, that causes us to consume and consume to fill a hole that we will never be able to fill, because it's not stuff that's missing, it's our relationship to the sacred that's missing.
Amen.
I just want to say, give yourself permission to fall back in love with this world, because she will teach us all who and what we are, and there's nothing more important and nothing more beautiful. And thank you for letting me say that.
Thank you for saying it, and just thank you for this time together. So I'm closed now. Again, contact Claire through TreeSisters.org and join this empowering movement. And I just know there's time if we take action. So thank you, Claire, for being here. Appreciate it.